Good morning to you. It is Saturday, September 24th. I'm Abby Huntsman, and we start with a Fox News alert. A massacre at the mall this morning. 5 people are dead after a shooter opens fire in a gun-free zone.
We're receiving shots fired at Burlington.
I've got 2 victims down bleeding in the makeup section. Unknown number of victims. Reports of 3 to 4 down inside.
Police are needing your help this morning finding this man. You can see him there. The latest on the manhunt in moments.
And then what's the moderator going to do if this happens at Monday night's debate?
Every time I think about Trump, I get allergic.
Lay off the Newports, would you? Well, this morning we know what will happen if Hillary's allergies strike again, and we'll tell you coming up.
It looks like the antibiotics weren't enough. Hillary Clinton having trouble keeping up with the Kardashians. Kim just said she might vote for Trump. This morning we're going to analyze, does anyone care? Fox and Friends Hour 4 starts right now.
This could be big, guys. This
Right,
could
Kim
change
Kardashian.
the race as we know it. This could be huge.
Earth-shattering. Every few months, I always ask my wife, I said, what does Kim Kardashian do again? Like, what does she do?
You know what? I have remained blissfully insulated from the influence of Kim Kardashian. I know nothing about her. I'm not letting it in my head. In fact, I'm going to plug my ears as you read that news story.
We have Lieutenant General Michael Flynn on the show.
Should we
could ask him. And we're going to dive into some deep topics. Maybe we'll ask him.
You can't see him. He's right off camera right there. One of our favorite
He looks
guests.
so excited to talk about this topic. Can't wait to bring him on the couch. But before that,
he does not want to talk about
we
that.
do have some headlines to get to as well this morning, starting with a Fox News alert and a massive manhunt underway right now for an armed killer who shot 5 people dead inside of a shopping mall just north of Seattle.
Shot after shot after shot. And then that's when I ran immediately to where I work at, with a bunch of people. And we were able to, lock up and stay safe until we had to evacuate.
Police now scouring this area for this man. You can see him there on surveillance carrying a rifle. Police describe him as a Hispanic male in his 20s wearing all black. They are urging people right now to stay inside. And now to another Fox News alert. Hillary Clinton postpones her trip to Charlotte as chaos erupts again for the 4th night in a row. Protesters denying the mandated curfew to demand justice for Keith Scott, a black man shot by a black police officer. And this video taken near the scene of that shooting just released by the victim's widow.
Wait, don't you do it. Keith! Don't you do it! You go shoot him!
Wow, it's tough to watch. The police say that suspect had a gun. It was loaded and had his blood and fingerprints on it. Yet the department still refusing to release dash cam or body cam video of the shooting. And we are learning another top Hillary Clinton aide given immunity by the FBI in the now closed email probe. Cheryl Mills, Clinton's former chief of staff, the 5th person to strike a similar deal. Chair of the House Oversight Committee, Jason Chaffetz, is outraged, saying, quote, no wonder they couldn't prosecute a case. They were handing out immunity deals like candy. And it looks like Hillary Clinton is having trouble keeping up with the Kardashians. This morning, Kim broke the news that her father, Caitlyn Jenner, has convinced her to consider voting for Donald Trump. Kim said, quote, at first I thought, oh my God, I'm so Hillary. But I had a long political call with Caitlyn last night about why she's voting Trump. And I'm on the fence.
We want to bring in Lieutenant General Michael Flynn to weigh in on the Kardashian flat this morning.
No, we're not going to inflict the sideshow on you, General.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. So you were here last
You're
week.
seeing more people jump on the Trump train, so this is a good thing. It's a good sign.
Well, as a Trump
We're
surrogate,
going to leave it there. Whoa.
Yeah, hey.
Well, as a Trump surrogate, I mean, what are you looking for Monday night? Terrorism, obviously, going to be a big focus. Foreign policy, a big focus. We had Sebastian Gorka on the show earlier, Jillian Turner saying, we haven't seen an ISIS policy plan yet from Donald Trump on how to defeat ISIS. Will Donald Trump lay out a clear plan on how to defeat ISIS?
Yeah, I mean, the big difference between Donald Trump and what Hillary Clinton is proposing is with Donald Trump, you actually win the war against radical Islam. And with Hillary Clinton, you continue to participate in this never-ending conflict with no end. So Donald Trump, about 5 weeks ago now, if I remember right, he gave a great speech on essentially countering radical Islamism. And he laid out 4 components. He laid out a military component, a financial component, cyber, where we have to get much more aggressive in the world of cyber, and also the countering the ideology. So those 4 sort of strategic components are the essence of what Donald Trump has stated in terms of what it is to defeat radical Islamism. The problem today that we have is this enemy is no longer just over there. They're here, as we have recently seen. So we have a problem right here in the homeland with the rise of radical Islamism. And, and we saw that, in spades here this last
Yeah, that's what
week.
A lot of voters are concerned about. Even last weekend we saw that happen here. And we're learning more about the Chelsea bomber, Ahmad Khan Rahami. He began posting apparently radical videos back in 2010. He went to Syria, and he's just the latest terrorist. When you look back to have fallen off the Fed's radar list, you look at the terrorist in Orlando. Apparently he met with the FBI 3 different times. One of the Tsarnaev brothers was on their radar 2 years before that. This is what people are concerned about. How did that go missing?
Yeah, well, first of all, just to give your listeners a little bit of a comparison, there are roughly 17,000 federal agents in the FBI. There's 34,000 police officers here in the city of New York. So if the director of the FBI is right when he says we have 1,000 cases on radical Islamism or ISIS-inspired cases in this country alone, in all 50 states, then we have an imbalance in our resources, and we have a problem working between the federal, state, and local levels. There is a clear breakdown somewhere. So we have to take a harder look at how we're taking care of our own homeland security, how we're working together, how we're cooperating from the federal down to the local level. And actually, I believe that we have to give more authority or more leverage to our state and local level and allow them to do the things that they know that they need to do.
So one of the reasons that we're seeing so many attacks here in the United States is because we have been importing wholesale tens of thousands of people who hate us. Trump made that point. The establishment attacked him. They furiously went crazy. They hated that. Will he say something similar to that in the debate Monday night?
Yeah, we'll see what he has to say in the debate. But this idea of bringing in refugees into this country. The guy that did the stabbings up in Minnesota is a Somali refugee, I understand. Yes. So we have a problem. And if we're going to talk about bringing in another 100,000 or up to 100,000 refugees from countries like Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, maybe Somalia. I got all the issues about young children and women, but we don't understand who these people are. The FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice have all said, hey, we can't vet this thing 100%. It's not a 100% foolproof system. So let's stop and figure out, if we're going to do this, how do we get there? How are we able to do that? In the meantime, I kind of say, hey, look, what's going on in the Muslim world? What's going on in particularly the Arab world? Where are the leaders there, and what are they doing to help this problem out? We have to take them to task as well.
Speaking of the FBI, I want to get your take on what happened last night. Another Friday document dump when people are out to dinner and at the movies and not paying much attention. We now learn that the president may have used a pseudonym in communicating with Hillary Clinton while she was Secretary of State on her own private server. Of course, this contradicts what we heard back a number of months ago when President Obama on CBS said this about when he learned about the private email. Take a listen.
Mr. President, when did you first learn that Hillary Clinton used an email system outside the U.S. government for official business while she was Secretary of State?
The same time everybody else learned it through news reports.
So news reports, not when I was communicating using a pseudonym with her. What do you make of that?
The level of dishonesty, this is what the American public are sick of. They're sick of the lying, they're sick of the dishonesty, they're sick of this perpetuation of fraud within the federal government. The breakdown between trust, from those in Washington, D.C. and the rest of those in America is stunning. And that trust is why I believe that there's millions and millions of Americans that are joining to sort of get on with Donald Trump to become the next president of the United States, because we can't have this. We cannot have this any longer, and we can't have people that are dancing around political correct terms any longer. We have got to come to grips with basically rebuilding the trust between the American public and the White House.
When I get out and
that includes the Secretary of State, or the State Department, includes the Department of Defense. There's so much at stake here in this election.
Absolutely. When I go out and cover some of the Trump rallies and events, I ask the supporters of, what do you like about Trump? And that is really the one thing that I continue to hear is, I don't agree with everything that he has to say, but he is so different from so many politicians that we have known over the years, and we want something so different at this point. He's going to have to hammer that out as well on Monday night to remind people of why he is different, and maybe even bring up the email scandal. How does he do that in a way that he looks presidential still?
Well, I mean, I hope that if the commentators are going to be honest, they should be bringing it up. They should be asking these tough questions, because this is a big issue, because it gets to the issue of honesty. And I would say one thing on temperament, because temperament always keeps coming up. Temperament, Donald Trump, I've known Donald Trump now for some time. I've had a lot of time with him. His temperament is a temperament of winning. And that's what, when people look at temperament, hey, I'm showing temperament now, but my temperament is about resolve and determination. Donald Trump, his temperament is very similar, and it's also about winning. This is not about, the issue of, what it is we're going to do, or we're going to wring our hands. I mean, the folks in the sort of the Clinton machine, and what we're seeing right now, because they're falling behind rapidly, you see all this hand wringing, and I just see that this campaign between now and the end of up until the election is going to get ugly.
Really quickly, we're facing a ton of threats. People are afraid. The administration is now telling us that one of the most important things we can do is to integrate transgenders into our combat troops. You spent a life in uniform. Is that going to make us a ton safer?
Yeah, well, here's what I would say about that. The LGBT community, if they, we are a standards-based organization in the military. If they can meet the standards, I don't have any issues with it at all. What we can't do is make diversity our #1 priority. Defense should be our #1 priority.
Well said.
General, great to see you.
Well said.
Thanks, General.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Well, Hillary Clinton has a question for you.
Now, having said all this, why aren't I 50 points ahead, you might ask?
Well, less than 50 days before the election, can she catch up? We'll discuss it.
And she promised if Trump won the White House.
I don't think that's America. I don't want it to be America. Maybe it's time for me to move. Listen, I can afford to go.
Oh, well, wow. So did Trump do Whoopi a favor? Geraldo Rivera still on tap to talk about that and more when we come back.
Well, it's just 45 days, can you believe it, to go until the presidential election. Hillary Clinton is making a hard sell to millennial voters. Here's part of it.
What happens if you become pregnant?
I could send you some pamphlets.
Nobody should be fooled. Now, having said all this, why aren't I 50 points ahead, you might ask?
That's a good question. Sorry, having trouble modulating my voice there. The former Secretary of State is intent on changing her image after a steady decline in support from young voters, but time is running out, and the question is, can she do it by November?
So let's ask Steve Hilton. He's the CEO of CrowdPack, a political crowdfunding and data site, and former advisor to UK Prime Minister David Cameron. Steve, thanks for being here this morning so early. Appreciate it.
Great to be with you. Are you going to ask me to weigh in on the Kardashian situation? I'm very nervous you're going to ask me.
What are your thoughts?
I really have nothing to say about that.
Good for you.
Love it. All right, so let's pull up this poll. This is from August. You can see Clinton came there 50% to Trump, Pence 23%. And this is a more recent one we can pull up that shows it coming a little closer together. Clinton came there, shrinking there, 37%, Trump, Pence, 28%. What is going on here? Because we've seen she doesn't get out much, but when she does, she really does like to do the late night shows, most recently Between Two Ferns. Doesn't seem like that's helping much, though.
Yeah, well, I think when it comes to younger voters, that she can do all the things that she likes, like that, but fundamentally there's something about her, I think, that is just out of step with today's world. I think it's something to do with the way that she's so controlled and calculating, and it just doesn't really fit with the times. Whereas if you look at Trump, who's actually a bit older, there's something about the way he goes about things, his more freewheeling style, even the way he uses Twitter, which of course gets him into trouble a lot. There's something about him that's in a way more modern and contemporary.
Yeah, he doesn't try to be funny either. He doesn't try to be funny, which is good.
So exactly. So, Steve, all the smart people I know missed Brexit. The betting markets even missed it. You did not miss it. You had your finger on it early, one of the rare people who did. A lot of that vote was hidden.
Well, in the case of Brexit, there was a big group of people, I think at least 4 or 5%, and that really makes a difference when it's a tight race, who had not been picked up by any of the polling or the very sophisticated data models that we all hear about these days in politics, because they just hadn't bothered to vote. They hadn't voted in previous elections for many years. And I think there's a real comparison here when you look at what's driving all that, the realities of life underneath that. Some data that was published a couple of weeks ago, I think, about, was it last week, on incomes in America was really revealing and important as to what's going on in this election. People jumped on one aspect of that new income data, which showed that incomes in America went up last year for the first time in many years, and of course that was good news. But the other thing that was revealed in that data was that the median income in America is still lower today than in 1999. And what that means in plain English is that half of Americans, 50% of Americans, are earning less today than in 1999. After 8 years of Bush and 8 years of Obama, they are earning less. That's why they've given up on politics. Yes. That's why they don't come out to vote. And I think that's the group that's really looking to Trump as someone, after all these years of failure from the traditional politicians, he might actually change things.
That's exactly right. I think that's really insightful.
That's really well said.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Steve. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
All right, well, Colin Kaepernick's national anthem protest land him on the cover of Time magazine. Is that really appropriate? Baltimore Ravens tight end Benjamin Watson, he is here to discuss next.
Plus, want to hold a barbecue in honor of your country? One college says you can't do that because it's, quote, offensive. American higher education melts down, and we're there to capture it. Stay tuned. Back by popular demand, some quick headlines for you. First up, you can vote in Colorado even if, and this is impressive, you're dead. A local bombshell from a news organization in Colorado reveals deceased men and women have been casting their ballots in the state for years, most likely for Democrats. State voting officials say they have to follow strict criteria to remove names from voting rolls, and minor errors could lead to mistaken votes. Not clear on how minor it is to allow a dead guy to vote. And she promised if Donald Trump won the White House, this.
I don't think that's America. I don't want it to be America. Maybe it's time for me to move. Listen, I can afford to go.
Well, in perhaps a sign of things to come, Whoopi Goldberg has just revealed she may be leaving The View by this time next year because she has, quote, other things to do and perhaps other countries to live in. Abby?
Right, thanks for that, Tucker. So, switching gears here, protests in Charlotte have calmed down since the violent confrontations earlier in the week where one man was shot and later died, 44 were arrested, and dozens of officers were injured.
Here to weigh in is Baltimore Ravens tight end and author of the book Under Our Skin, Benjamin Watson. Nice to see you this morning, Ben. Welcome back to the show. Always great to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you guys.
All right, so when you see what's unfolding, obviously we had some more peaceful night last night down there, thankfully. But I love something you said. You said these candidates, Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, can't save us. What do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean is in our country, we're obviously in a political season, and politics is very important. Obviously, we have great respect for those who lead our country and whoever will become the president of the United States. But ultimately, when you look at the underlying issue of our problems, they're bigger than simply economics, although that's very important. They're bigger than simply race and us getting along with each other and creating opportunities. All those things are important, but ultimately, for us to be able to treat each other the correct way, we need a divine intervention, I think. That is what I'm pointing to. That is what I'm urging people to do, is to surrender and to repent from some of the vile things that we've seen said between people, especially when it comes to these protests or whatever it is that's happening in this country right now.
Yeah, and that sort of leads right into Colin Kaepernick and the story that everyone's been following, kneeling during the national anthem. He is now on the cover of Time magazine. We had basketball coach Bobby Knight on the show yesterday, and here's what he had to say about this. Well, that was not the right clip, but he basically said that it would be very distracting if he were one of his players and that he would not allow them to be part of the game. What is your response?
Well, I've had a lot of great coaches in my career, high school, college, the NFL, and most of the great coaches I know would at least talk to their players. I mean, coaches care about players. We spend a lot of time together. So even if there's something like this going on, and you see what Chip Kelly did over there in San Francisco, he may have not agreed with Colin at first, but he was willing to have the conversation. And I think that that's the important thing, is that a coach's job is to protect their players. He may not agree with his players, but the conversation needs to be had, and I think that's why Colin knelt. Bobby Knight, he's obviously one of the great basketball coaches ever to coach, had great respect for him, but my hope would be that if he were in a similar situation, he would at least have his team come together and talk about the reasons why one of his players felt so strongly enough to take a knee during the national anthem.
One of the things you talk about in these violent outbreaks that we're seeing, these protests, you say the bias we need to examine. You say one of the most telling comments came from that helicopter pilot. Tell us about that, what your thoughts are.
Well, bias is something that could be obviously explicit or implicit. A lot of us may not even know that we act in a biased manner. I mean, you can remember some of these tests with little kids, and they asked the kid, they put a picture of a bunch of different dolls in front of them, from a very, very light-skinned doll to a dark-skinned doll, and ask which one stole the money or which one is bad. And they always seem to pick the darker one. And it doesn't mean that they have hate in their heart. Essentially, what it means is that we grow up in a system that is in many ways biased. And when I heard the helicopter operator, whoever was in the helicopter, the police officer, say that looked like a bad dude from that high up, that right there lets me know that there is some bias. And a lot of times when we come into these situations, police officers, citizens, we act out of that bias without even knowing that we have it. So, of course, you're going to have your extremes. You're going to have those who are white supremacists. You're going to have those who hate all white people. Those aren't the people that I think we need to reach. The people that I want to talk to specifically are those in the middle who may not consider themselves to be racist or to be haters or whatever it is, but we need to recognize that there's inherent bias simply in this country, and we all kind of act out of it. But when we identify it, that's when we're able to address it.
That is well said, Benjamin Watson. Thanks for being with us this morning. Good to see you, sir.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
Coming up here on the show, we're 45 days away from the election. So how are immigration bosses reacting? They're trying to swear in as many new citizens as possible before the deadline. Wonder who that will help?
And Geraldo Rivera is here to react, joining the Curvy Couch. That is up next.
We appreciate the support of the candidates. We appreciate that they're concerned about Charlotte. At this point, we do have very stretched resources for security, and they are working around the clock. If there will be a way to delay those visits in terms of giving us a chance to get our city, back to order and back to more of a state of normalcy, that would probably be ideal.
So there's a lot going on in the world, a lot going on in Charlotte, North Carolina, and who better to break it down with us than Geraldo Rivera? So Geraldo, here's what upsets me. I understand people are frustrated with these police shootings. I get it completely. But Democratic politicians are now sending the message pretty explicitly that if you don't like the way things are going, it's legitimate to go out and burn things down, to hurt strangers who are not related to the problem, to loot businesses. Sure, because they're saying these are protesters. They're not. They rioted and hurt people for no reason, and no one denounced them from the left.
Well, let me agree. In part, I think that the president's response to Charlotte was way too muted. It was almost nuanced. It was, folks sometimes get out of hand, and that's unfortunate. But people have the right to demonstrate if they have an issue. Exactly. And this is certainly, in other words, it seemed as if he was speaking about college kids maybe toilet papering a house. Exactly. And I thought that he lacked the urgency and the passion necessary to match that particular event. But politicians, and Tucker, whether it's a disaster like this man-made or something from Mother Nature or some other calamity or catastrophe, they particularly in an election season, go to seize the moment, seize the attention of the media. There is a photo op in the offing. Baton Rouge was the last one. Hillary Clinton, I really believe, felt that Donald Trump stole a march on her. Mexico, when he went to Mexico at the invitation of the Mexican government, stealing a march on Hillary. I think that's why she wanted very much to get down to Charlotte first. And the mayor, who we just saw, told her in a very calm and measured way, please wait. We are strained right now, our resources. Don't come down. Don't force us to divert cops to guard you when we have the need for them to guard the city.
Well, that's the same thing was said in Louisiana. We remember during the flooding.
Rouge, exactly.
Please stay away, politicians. We don't need you right now because you lock streets up, you have Secret Service, all of those things. We need to get resources out. That didn't stop Donald Trump.
He didn't. He landed at another field, and the people were very sincerely happy to see him. And Hillary was determined not to let that happen again.
Well, there are a lot of people that were critical that President Obama didn't go sooner, even though he was told not to come. So this whole issue of race relations is surely going to be a big topic in the debate on Monday night. Both candidates have spoken out about it. How is this going to go? Who do you think has the winning argument there?
Well, I think that, here you have Lester Holt as the moderator, a very prominent African-American commentator, anchorman, very measured in his approach, it seems to me. I don't know, I've never discerned whether Holt is a Republican or a Democrat or even a liberal or a conservative. I really think that he has no particular agenda in that regard. But he has the moral burden and authority to ask first that question. I think that Abby, will open the debate.
Out of the gate.
Out of the gate. It will be, here's the situation, and I think that he could frame the question as you did, Tucker. People acting out, what do you do? Do you say you're sympathetic to their cause but condemn their, I think that race relations and particularly incendiary situations like Charlotte or Tulsa or so forth will dominate the first 10 minutes of the debate.
I hope so. Trying to throw journalists into bonfires, throwing rocks at cars. So the federal government, famous for its slow response to citizens' requests. And now, however, documents show that ICE, the immigration part of the federal government, is expediting requests for citizenship for green card holders in order to get people registered to vote for this election. Why is that not packing the electorate?
I heard that story, and it reminded me of the scene in Martin Scorsese's Gangs of New York. Set in the middle of the 19th century, right here in town. It showed the Irish immigrants arriving, and they got off the ship. They gave them a rifle to enlist them in the Union Army, and then they signed them up as Democrats to vote in the Tammany Hall, the corrupt political organization's elections. So I think you've had that kind of immigration, voter manipulation, demographic stuffing of the ballot box. I think historically it's better than dead people voting in Cook County like they did in 1960, or the Cuban Americans in 2000 stopping the recount of the vote in South Florida. I think that you have around the edges in the election process, you always have some stinky stuff going on. And I think that if in fact it's true that, and I've seen the emails, it seems to be true that the immigration and naturalization people are expediting citizenship to get people on what their motive is. They don't stay, but you can assume that it's to get them on the voter rolls. If they're doing that, it's part of a long tradition. It's statistically usually almost insignificant, but it is always irksome.
In a state like Arizona, where things could be close, it could be it could sway the election.
Well, look at 2000. It was 560 votes. It didn't take a whole lot to give Florida to George W. Bush, and once Florida went, to give him the presidency, despite the fact that he had less votes nationally than Al Gore did.
Right. And you're going to beat Hofstra. You're going to be there.
I will. I just want to say one quick thing about Hillary Clinton. Everyone said that she's been intensely preparing for the debates, and that's why she's kind of disappeared. I think what people are missing is she's resting. She's beat up. I mean, physically. I really identify with both the candidates. They're in my age demographic, and I know how I've lost a step over the last several years. I think Hillary wanted to be president in 2008. She had to wait 8 more years. Now she's deep into her 60s. She's lost a step. I can no longer jump to 2 steps, 3 steps the way I used to. Well, I think the same thing with the former secretary, and I think that's why she's been so low profile.
90 minutes, no commercials. We'll see how that goes. Geraldo, always good to see you.
What if they need a bathroom break?
Thanks, Geraldo. We appreciate it.
It's a real question. Past a certain age.
All right, we've got some other headlines this morning. Guess what? It turns out the Orlando shooter, Omar Mateen, was a radical Islamic terrorist. This complete transcript of his 911 calls just released, showing his references to the Islamic State, which were previously left out by the FBI. Mateen shot and killed 49 people in the Pulse nightclub before being gunned down by police. And authorities now suspect Russian hackers were behind the massive cyber attack at Yahoo, the company catching serious flack for the breach of 500 million users' account information. A New York man is now suing Yahoo for gross negligence. And the PC police declaring Uncle Sam too offensive. Student groups at Ramapo College in New Jersey tried holding an event called American Barbecue using Uncle Sam marketing. School administration saying it was, quote, too military and recruitment oriented. Interesting. All right. And a boozy barrel hunt is underway. Jack Daniels has hidden 150 prize-filled barrels all around the world as part of its 150th anniversary celebration. Inside the barrels are a one-of-a-kind bar, kit, or an anniversary bottle of Jack. One even ended up here on the Fox and Friends Plaza. Gotta find those.
I got my name on that barrel.
Walk off with a barrel. How much is a barrel of Jack Daniels? A lot, I bet.
A lot of money. 150 years, though.
Last a lifetime.
Yeah.
Well, just keep it up high enough.
Depends on your pace, I guess. Well, Facebook is jumping right into the 2016 race, but don't worry. The social media giant says it will play completely fair. Kurt the Cyber Guy is here to discuss what it might mean for you and the future of our democracy. Not a big deal. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. The Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture officially opens today following a dedication ceremony with President Obama.
And Kevin Corke is outside the museum this morning in Washington, D.C. Kevin, good to see you. Good morning, my friend.
Hey, great to see you, and it is a wonderful day to be out here. Listen, we've been out here since right around 7 o'clock this morning, and the crowds were building even then. As you pointed out, President Obama, President George W. Bush, and John Roberts, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States of America, among the many luminaries who will be here to help open up this latest Smithsonian Museum. And what a day to celebrate the full American experience, and truly this museum is a reflection of that. It's also been told that this is probably the most interactive of all the Smithsonian's. 36,000 artifacts, if you can imagine, and some 400,000 square feet of living history at your fingertips.
The African American experience is the quintessential American experience. It is the experience that helped us understand our notions of optimism, our notions of liberty, our notions of citizenship. We realize this is a story for us all, not just one community.
This beautiful bronze facade, a reminder perhaps of the beacon of invitation for all Americans to come and enjoy this slice of American history. Now, yesterday, we heard President Obama talk about the celebration today and sort of drawing a contrast between that and the ongoing struggles in a couple of great American cities, Charlotte and Tulsa. The president saying that this museum is a reminder of the progress that we as Americans have made, but also a reminder of the ongoing fight.
The timing of this is fascinating, because in so many ways, it is the best of times. But in many ways, these are also troubled times.
Yes, it is. Yes.
History doesn't always move in a straight line.
That's right.
And without vigilance, we can go backwards as well as forwards.
Guys, I got to tell you, it's been an incredible morning already. Spoken word, poetry. We've heard music of just about every variety, gospel and jazz and rock and soul, even a bit of country. We'll hear plenty of that, rapping, everything else over there across the street. As we've seen thousands collect here, it should be a great day. We'll have it all for you. And by the way, I just saw Samuel L. Jackson standing over here to my left.
Ooh.
I did not get a selfie, though I should have. Back to you.
There's still time.
Been watching that building go up for a while. Thanks, Kevin.
And a beautiful fall day. Well, is Mexico warming up to the idea of paying for Donald Trump's big, beautiful wall? Let's check back with them.
I am not going to pay for this wall.
And if you thought he was mad there, just wait, because this morning we learned Trump may get his wish after all.
Of course, Vicente Fox, not even the president anymore. Facebook jumping into the 2016 race, meanwhile, but don't worry. Rest assured, the social media giant says it will play fair with you. Kurt the Cyber Guy here to discuss the future of our democracy and Facebook. Stay tuned. Some quick headlines from the campaign trail. First up, Jill Stein did not get invited to the first debate on Monday, but that's not going to stop her from showing up. The Green Party candidate and her supporters plan on having a protest outside the debate site. And it's been a huge campaign promise from the very beginning. Donald Trump forcing Mexico to pay for the wall.
Don't worry, folks. We're going to be building the wall. We're going to build the wall. And who is going to pay for the wall? Who?
I am not going to pay for this wall.
The smart people scoff. Vicente Fox swore, but now a Mexican diplomat says Trump could actually get that money by increasing visa fees and raising tolls on bridges. Boom. Abby?
All right. Thank you, Tucker. So executives at Yahoo, Facebook, and Netflix now jumping on the Hillary Clinton bandwagon, raising $113 million for her campaign.
This as Facebook launches the first nationwide voter registration drive where users who are 18 and older will automatically receive a reminder to register to vote at the top of their news feeds. Here now to discuss is Kurt the Cyber Guy. Curious, first of all, on the first topic, Kurt.
Well, first of all, Facebook, I'm not a media company. We're not a media company.
Right.
They're everything about a media company.
They're one of the largest media companies in the world. More people getting their news in the news feed, videos playing. It's remarkable. But this idea that these guys are raising all of this money for Hillary Clinton, does that surprise you?
No, I mean, Silicon Valley has always been a hotbed for raising a lot of funds for, especially, you know, they lean to the left on this one, without question. 25-1 this particular election season. So Trump not getting too much out of that area, but $113 million is part of an 1,100 donation bundle, and these are called elite bundlers. So you're looking at, say, Facebook COO Sheryl Sandberg, as well as other folks.
Reed Hastings from Netflix.
Yes,
yeah.
And a number of other people there that are high profile who are showing up and collecting checks from their friends. They're called bundlers, and that's an elite bundler, and that's when it makes a big difference when you can put in your pocket $113 million from one collection of heavyweight people.
Well, and it makes you think this has got to impact the way that these CEOs are thinking about decisions that they're making. You think about like the Google homepage or Facebook, the things that they're putting out there for people to see. Might have an agenda.
I mean, look, Facebook still has not really come to Jesus on this whole idea of what's a trending story and how do we say that. And now here we have Facebook going into this debate, and as well as, you know, other social media going into the debate. They're going to be determining what's trending, what's the trending topic. And guess what? Moderators are now going to be feeding off this information, and they're going to say, oh, well, most people are clicking on this. Or is it somebody behind the scenes at Facebook that's saying, we think people are trending in this way?
That's the problem with these walled gardens. We never know.
It is.
Truly.
It is.
Kurt, great to see you this morning.
Hey, Clayton,
Thanks
good
so
to
much.
see you. Abby, always good to see you.
Debate on Monday night. Well, we told you earlier how college students weren't allowed to hold a patriotic barbecue because at the college because someone thought it was too offensive. Well, that won't stop us from holding our own offensive all-American barbecue or partying on the plaza.
That's right. That looks fun.